My husband changed me, someone who used to shy away from social interactions. With him, I thought I could be truly happy. Yet, after we got married, he changed. It started with yelling, moved on to shoving, and ultimately, he kicked me while I was sick in bed. This is not the man I married. Love has turned into fear. I want to run away, but I'm scared to do that too. But I know, at the end of the day, it's on me to speak up. Let's break up. My name is Scarlett, 29 years old. I've been married to Daniel for 2 years, and I'm a housewife. I lost my parents at a young age, and the grandmother who raised me passed away when I was in high school. I was bound to be lonely forever. Since my grandmother passed, I had been uncomfortable with relationships. Simple reason, really. It hurts when people leave. That's why I never had a boyfriend or close friends. I had always been on my own. But Daniel was different. He changed all that. He took an interest in me, a rather gloomy person. I'll never know. He asked me out repeatedly. At first, I was honestly annoyed by his persistence. But eventually, I gave in and found myself caught up in his world, realizing Daniel had become the most important person to me. That's how we ended up getting married 2 years ago, and now I'm questioning whether I should stay married, because Daniel changed after we got married. Within a few months into our marriage, he started coming home less and less. He wouldn't even tell me what time he'd be back and started criticizing what I was doing around the house. Why isn't my dinner ready? If I told him I thought he would be late, he'd just sigh and look at me with cold eyes. You're staying home on my dime and can't even manage the housework? What a wife! And just like that, he'd grab his change of clothes and leave the house. That's when I started making dinner every day, even if he wasn't coming home. But on those days, he wouldn't come home for a week. Is he tired of me? Did he see something he didn't like after marrying me? I couldn't stop thinking about it. I don't want the sweet memories I have with Daniel to be a lie. I don't want to be abandoned. I don't want to be alone. My mind was a mess. After living like this for 6 months, I decided something needs to change. I don't want to be a burden on Daniel, and honestly, we're hardly a married couple in this state. When Daniel finally came home, I asked if he was considering a divorce. To my surprise, he looked shocked. That's not it, Scarlett. I've been busy with work. I'm sorry for being cold lately. Please don't talk like that. In a moment of panic, Daniel hugged me, the first time in months. Suddenly, I felt guilty for not considering how busy he was with work. But if he doesn't communicate, I can't understand his struggles. I asked him to keep me in the loop moving forward, to talk to me when something's up. Of course, I promise. Seeing Daniel's smile made me feel relief for the first time in a while. For a moment, our troubles seemed like a lie, and life returned to normal. Even though there are still days Daniel doesn't come home, he keeps me updated. Just that alone started to make me happy again. However, 1 year after we got married, it was the day of our wedding anniversary. Daniel stood me up and never showed at the restaurant we had reserved. I was heartbroken, especially since it was our wedding anniversary, and I had never thought he'd cancel. Of course, it was because of work. I tried to be understanding since it was work-related, but it still hurt. I wish you would have told me sooner. When Daniel came back the day after our anniversary and I told him that, he glared at me. Why would you say something like that? Don't you see how hard I'm working? I do appreciate that he works hard, but I wanted him to prioritize our anniversary. When I expressed this, Daniel knocked the food off the table, shattering the dish. The sound echoed in the room. You're so selfish! Are you sure you're not just after my money? Daniel's mom, Olivia, who's my mother-in-law, founded her own company. Daniel and his brother work there. So many have pegged Daniel as the future CEO, and he had warned me that gold diggers had targeted him before. The only one who really loves me is Scarlett, he once happily told me. And honestly, I've never once thought about his family wealth. When I told him this, Daniel looked at me with eyes full of disbelief. Then get a job. You've got too much free time if you're complaining about me. You'd do it if you really loved me, right? Would a job solve this issue? I hesitated, but ultimately nodded. I didn't want Daniel to think I was with him for the money, and more than anything, I didn't want him to leave me. I started to question my sanity. I had come to think that Daniel's anger was a result of something I did. So I found a full-time job. If I tidied up before and after work, Daniel wouldn't complain. Then, one day, Olivia contacted me. "Scarlett, I heard you're working now. What happened? Weren't you planning to quit after getting married?" I responded with a forced smile, saying I had time to spare. Olivia has always been kind to me from the moment we met. She's a busy CEO, but checks in on me. I vividly remember the time we went shopping right after the wedding. She looked at me like a dream had come true. Daniel used to have a sister, who tragically passed away. Maybe that's why Olivia is extra kind to me. "Reach out if you're ever in trouble." Her kind words nearly brought tears to my eyes. I never knew my parents, but I wonder if this is how it'd feel to have a mother. Thinking about it warms my heart a little. I don't want to cause any trouble for Olivia. Supporting her son, Daniel, is my role after all. But that's easier said than done, especially when Daniel doesn't come home. Ever since I started working, there's no longer any money being handed over to me. I mean, we're getting by, but is this really okay? I find myself troubled by the same thoughts over and over. Nothing has changed since back then. Maybe something needs to change. Just when I was thinking this, Daniel came home after a long time. "Did you say anything to Mom?" I tell Daniel about the call I got. He seemed angry at first, but smiled in relief when he found out I hadn't said anything to Olivia. "That's my wife. Make sure to tell Mom we're getting along just fine, okay?" I ask Daniel if we're really doing as well as he thinks. "I can focus on my job as the future CEO because you handle things so well, Scarlett. Once you're the CEO's wife, I'll treat you to a lavish life." Hearing Daniel so satisfied with that, my heart sinks. I never wanted to be a CEO's wife. I just wanted to build a happy home with you, Daniel. That was enough for me. As I say this, I feel a sharp pain on my cheek. Daniel slapped me. "How dare you say that? When I'm working so hard, I married you, so just listen to me." This isn't the Daniel I knew. Tears start to flow. Even my crying seemed to anger him more. "Wake me up when dinner's ready," he said, and stormed off to the bedroom. I made dinner while crying that night, and ate a tasteless meal in silence with Daniel. Things went downhill from there. Daniel started coming home more often. Perhaps Olivia said something, but he was cold as ice to me. I've thought about leaving him, but would he agree to a divorce? I didn't know. And what if he hits me again? Ever since that day, Daniel would poke or lightly kick me. I find myself flinching whenever he raises his voice or hand. He even made me quit my job, even though it was his idea for me to work in the first place. Was it just to torment me? I have no idea what Daniel wants from me. My sole focus every day is not to get yelled at by Daniel. Amidst all this, Daniel invited me to Olivia's birthday party. "There'll be a lot of people there, so don't embarrass me. Get your hair done on the day and wear something appropriate." Despite the rough times, I was looking forward to a break. Seeing Olivia will be my strength to get through the days, but my luck ran out, and I came down with a high fever on the day of Olivia's birthday. I have a fever of 103, and it might even go up. I can't go to the in-laws' house, I tell Daniel. As expected, Daniel yells at me. "How could you get sick at a time like this? You're useless!" I apologize over and over, but Daniel kicks me repeatedly through the comforter. "I'm going ahead. Get ready and come to my parents' house." Despite my high fever, Daniel insists that I should come. I can't go like this. Ignoring my soft murmur, Daniel just leaves the house. If I don't go, who knows what he'll do to me next? Desperate, I put on makeup, fix my hair, and get ready. But every move is slow, and my foggy head just takes too much time. Before I know it, over an hour has passed since Daniel left the house. Daniel calls to rush me, annoyed that I haven't arrived. Get it together! Come to the celebration now! Are you trying to embarrass me? I quickly call a taxi and arrive at the in-laws' house. This should prevent more scolding. But when I get there, the relatives and guests look at me with disbelief. Scarlett, what are you wearing? Even Olivia, who notices me, looked puzzled. I catch my reflection in a large, full-length mirror in the in-laws' house. My makeup and hair are a mess. The word disheveled would be an understatement for how I look right now. I apologize to Olivia, who is giving me a cold stare, and she sighs in disbelief. Scarlett, you should break up with Daniel. To which Daniel chimes in cheerfully. Come on, Mom, give her a break. She just overslept. She didn't even remember it was your birthday. I bow my head at his unhelpful comment. Then a loud slap resonates. I look up to see Olivia has slapped Daniel. What? Why? With a face of disbelief, Daniel stares at Olivia. Daniel, did you force Scarlett to come even though she's clearly unwell? Is that how a person should act? Daniel tries to argue back, but gets slapped on the other cheek before he can speak. I have evidence that you're having an affair. Shall we talk about it? Olivia takes Daniel into the study. I'm led to the guest room by my brother-in-law Andrew and rest there. Whether it's the medicine kicking in or exhaustion, I drift into a deep sleep. When I wake up, it's nighttime. Daniel sits in submission and Olivia looks exasperated in the living room. Olivia quickly fills me in on what happened. Apparently, Daniel had been dating someone even before we got married, and he had plans to marry her. Turns out, Daniel's ex had a kleptomania issue. She even stole from Olivia when she visited their home. Naturally, Olivia banned her from the house and made it clear that they wouldn't support Daniel if he married her. That's why Daniel chose me as his cover-up. He thought I looked like his late sister and that Olivia would like me. If Olivia approved of me, he figured he would also be in her good graces. Olivia didn't say more, but I think Daniel also saw my docile nature as easy to manipulate. Daniel planned to break up with you after he became the CEO. I've only met Scarlett a few times a year, but she seemed less lively each time. That's why I investigated my son and Scarlett. I'm really sorry about Daniel. With that, everything made sense. Daniel never loved me from the start. Surprisingly, I felt more relieved than sad, because I'd already been thinking I should leave. Love had turned into fear after all the shouting and physical abuse. Olivia, I'm leaving him. Olivia nodded. Daniel, you better pay the alimony properly in court. Sign these divorce papers and this pledge, she demanded. Quit my job? And $50,000 in alimony? Are you kidding? Daniel was in disbelief. As I was trying to wrap my head around the fact that I might lose my job, Daniel turned to me for help. I really loved you, Scarlett. I was just meeting my ex because she's relentless. I didn't know what she'd do if I didn't. Trust me. He pleaded through tears, but his tears weren't for me. I still have the bruise you gave me this morning. I could easily get a medical report and file charges. Sign the papers if you don't want to be sued, I warned him. Olivia, unaware of the physical abuse, burst into tears and started hitting Daniel. You're a terrible person! Don't ever come back home. We're done, she yelled. Afterward, brother-in-law Andrew stepped in. Daniel signed the papers, crying. If he regretted it so much, he shouldn't have done it in the first place, I thought. Maybe I also had a part in this for putting up with it for so long. Watching Daniel cry, I vowed never to neglect my feelings again. After the divorce, I focused on moving and job hunting. It was a hectic time. But Andrew helped with finding a new place, and Olivia even referred me to a job. I was being pampered, really. I managed to find a job in the same field as before, and recently got the offer. Of course, I was hired on merit after a proper interview, not because of connections. But ever since, Olivia has been a bit overprotective of me, which worries me a little. Starting a new job while adjusting to a new lifestyle is bound to be challenging for a while. Still, right now, I feel more satisfied and secure than anxious. About a year after my divorce, I happened to run into my ex-husband Daniel loitering near my workplace. I just wanted to talk. He looked awful. His clothes were dirty, and he lacked the energy he once had. Long story short, he'd been dumped by his girlfriend and wanted to get back together with me. I couldn't help but laugh. I then showed Daniel my hand. On my right ring finger was a new ring I just received. I've been dating your brother recently. Not sure about marriage yet, but I do know he's a much better person than you. Plus, he's next in line to be CEO. Daniel had always arrogantly assumed that he, as the eldest son, would take over the family business, but Olivia never considered the irresponsible Daniel as a successor. Being married to you was a struggle, but there's one thing I'm grateful for. Thank you for introducing me to your family. I'm cherished here now. With a smile, I conveyed this to him. Daniel collapsed on the spot. He fell to his knees, sobbing. That was the moment I felt truly glad to have left him. While I still can't contemplate marriage due to my history with Daniel, I've decided to once again trust those who supported me during my toughest times. From now on, I'll live being true to my feelings.
I was feeling so feverish that I could barely stand. As my consciousness started to fade, I called out to my husband for help, but he left me alone, unable to move due to a high fever of 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and went on a company trip. I was rushed to the hospital. Is his job that important? Is this the kind of company that forces employees to go on company trips, leaving their sick wives behind? I was about to give up in anger. After I was discharged from the hospital, an unexpected person appeared before me. My name is Lisa, and I'm 28 years old. I attended a film school, and I'm now working from home creating videos. I got married to my husband Kevin 3 years ago. We met through a mountain climbing club I joined during my time at the vocational school. This club is a fairly free gathering that includes both students and working adults. Since we shared the same hobby, we started going to all kinds of mountains. Kevin, who was the same age as me, was easy to get along with, and we naturally started having lively conversations. We continued dating even after we started working, and it eventually led to us getting married. Kevin, who was a college student at the time, got a job at a regular company after graduation. Even though I work from home, he helped me a lot with the housework when we first got married. Just because you work from home doesn't mean you're working less, Lisa. Let's divide the housework equally. But the burden on me and you is completely different. It's fine, I can't cook, so I'll leave that to you, but I can do things like clean the bathroom, take out the trash. Kevin, thank you, this really helps me out. Don't worry, I got you. I'm really grateful for everything you do, Lisa. We're a couple, so let's do our best together. His kind words always warm my heart. I'm so glad I married him. I truly felt that way from the bottom of my heart. I'm happy now, but I would like to have children before I turn 30, which will be in 3 years. I'm thinking about discussing this with my husband, but I've been feeling a little anxious lately. That is, his behavior is a bit off and I feel distant with him lately. It all started with a trivial thing. He started working overtime more often about 2 months ago, and he started coming home extremely late. We started eating dinner separately more often, and we spent time less and less as a couple. I started to worry when he had to work overtime for several days in a row, which used to be quite infrequent. When he came home late at night, I decided to ask him about it. Kevin, you've been working a lot of overtime lately. Are you really that busy? Yeah. I have a lot of work to do. I've been cooped up in the office all the time. Are you okay? You often don't eat dinner when you come home. Your body can't take it if you keep this up. I'm fine. I'm expected to do well by my superiors. If I do well now, I might get promoted. But if you get sick from working too hard, it's all for nothing. Then my husband let out a long sigh I had never heard before, and reluctantly opened his mouth. You know, Lisa, I don't have a laid-back job like you that I can do at home. What? Kevin? Sorry, but my job is the most important thing right now. You don't need to make dinner for me anymore. But I've always waited for you because I wanted to eat together. Stop being so persistent. Didn't I tell you not to make it? Don't get in the way of my work. Are you going to take responsibility if I don't get promoted? My husband glared at me with a terrifying look. I was taken aback by his sharp gaze and involuntarily took a step back. After a long silence, he muttered something and left the living room. As soon as I was alone in the room, I was overwhelmed by an indescribable sense of emptiness. I couldn't understand what was happening because it was the first time he had pushed me away like this. I was only trying to express my worries. Why did he have to react so harshly? He used to be a kind and gentle man, not cold and distant. I wish he wouldn't push himself so hard at work to the point where he loses patience. I see no trace of the kind and loving husband I once knew in him now. The thought made me incredibly lonely. The rift between us only continued to grow, our daily conversations becoming more and more minimal. Now, after 2 months, we barely even see each other. The housework, which he used to help with enthusiastically, is now entirely neglected. It all falls on me. I feel like a housekeeper. Does Kevin not love me anymore? Did he prioritize work because of something I did? The thought suddenly crossed my mind, leading me to loathe myself. I could have asked him directly, but I was scared of confronting the reality. Then one day, I woke up early in the morning feeling unwell. Why am I burning up like this? My head hurts too, and my vision is blurred. When I tried to get out of bed, I collapsed onto the floor because my body felt so heavy. I tried to get up, but my body wouldn't cooperate. Awakened by the noise, my husband Kevin was standing by my side. I reached out to him for help, but he just ignored me and looked down at me saying, "What are you doing? Hurry up and make breakfast." "Wait, Kevin, I think I have a really high fever. I'm sorry to ask on your day off, but could you take me to the hospital?" "Fever? Huh? You're overreacting. Are you just trying to get out of doing chores?" "No, that's not it. Please help me." I reached out to him again, but he just brushed off my hand. "Kevin, why? I'm really not feeling well." "I'm tired of this. Always pretending to be sick. Aren't you embarrassed?" "I'm not pretending. My body really won't listen to me." "Whatever. Stay like that forever then. I have a company trip today, so I'll be leaving now." "What? A company trip? I didn't hear anything about this." "I don't need to tell you every little thing. I'll be back in 3 days." Kevin walked past me and left the bedroom. I managed to get up by leaning against the wall and tried to follow him, but he didn't pay any attention to me. Being left alone in this condition, just thinking about it sent a chill down my spine. I followed Kevin towards the front door and tried to stop him. "Wait, Kevin, please, take me to the hospital before you leave." "You're so annoying. I'm leaving now. You can slack off on the chores while I'm away. That should make you happy, right?" "I'm not trying to slack off. I just really don't feel good. I need some medicine from the hospital." "I told you you're overreacting. Just go to sleep. It will get better. Don't interfere with my plans." "No, please, wait. Wait, Kevin." Despite my pleas, he left without looking back. When the door closed, an overwhelming sense of despair washed over me. My body was burning hot, but I felt a chill. I also felt nauseous. There's no medicine here. I have to go to the hospital. With determination, I decided to head to the hospital. It took much longer than usual to get dressed, and with great difficulty, I managed to start walking to the hospital. There were no taxis in this area, so I had to walk to the nearby hospital. It's been a long time since I last had a fever this high. I'm normally in good health, so I'm not resistant to such situations, making me feel very physically uncomfortable. Even as I slowly head to the hospital, my body feels heavy and I can hardly move forward. I take one step and stop, a few steps, then rest by holding onto a street pole. My vision spins and I lose consciousness. A few hours later, I wake up to find a white ceiling above me. I look around and realize that I'm lying down in a hospital room. After a while, a nurse enters the room and asks, "How are you feeling?" I finally learn what has happened to me. I had fainted and fallen on the street. A passerby called 911 and I was brought here by an ambulance. The passerby stayed with me until the ambulance arrived. I had a high fever of over 104 degrees Fahrenheit and I was unconscious, so I had to be given an IV. Thanks to that, my body now feels significantly lighter. I told the doctor, "I'm okay," but I was kept in the hospital for 1 more day as a precaution. By the next day, my fever had subsided and I recovered as if nothing had happened. When I asked about the passerby who helped me, I was told they didn't know who it was. It's disappointing, but there was nothing I could do about it, so I went home. When I arrived home in the afternoon, I decided to call my husband, Kevin, and pulled out my phone. However, for some reason, I couldn't tap the call button. What if he doesn't answer? What if he doesn't worry about me even if he does answer? What should I do if he says don't call for such a thing? My husband left me suffering from a high fever and went on a company trip. I'm scared just thinking about what he would say if I called him now. If he reacts in an annoyed manner over the phone, my mental state wouldn't be able to handle it. The more I thought about it, the more I hesitated to call him. As I was having a staring contest with my phone, I was brought back to reality by the sound of the doorbell. Checking the monitor, there stood a strange man holding a paper bag. I cautiously opened the door with the chain still on and asked nervously, can I help you?" My apologies. My name is Eric Weiss from Weiss Enterprises." "Weiss Enterprises? Isn't that where my husband—" "Wait, you're Mr. Weiss?" "Yes, I'm the president of Weiss Enterprises. How are you feeling, Lisa?" To my surprise, it was my husband's boss who visited me. Why on earth would such a person come to visit? In my confusion, I took off the door chain and managed to utter some words. Mr. Weiss, why are you here, and how do you know about my condition?" "Sorry for not explaining. I was the one who found you collapsed on the street yesterday and called 911. "Wait, you were?" "Yes. But I was surprised. I thought Kevin was always accompanying you to the hospital. Always accompanying? Mr. Weiss asked with a puzzled look as I stood there confused. You've been sickly, haven't you, Lisa? And it's been particularly tough lately, so Kevin has been taking a lot of time off work to accompany you to the hospital. Wait a minute, what are you talking about? Well, you've been sick and have had to go to the hospital, so Kevin has been taking a lot of time off work recently. No, that's not true. I'm not sickly. Really? Then why were you collapsed on the street yesterday? Well, yesterday I happened to have a high fever for the first time in a long time. I asked Kevin to take me to the hospital, but he left me behind saying he had a company trip. I was trying to go to the hospital by myself. Company trip? What are you talking about? We haven't had a company trip for 2 years now, given the current situation. The more we talked, the more the inconsistencies became apparent. What's certain is that my husband had been lying to both me and the CEO, Eric. When it became clear that the company trip was a lie, I had a sinking feeling and hurried to my husband's room. I turned on his usual computer and checked his email inbox. There, I found a massive amount of correspondence with a woman who seemed to be his mistress. That was the moment my feelings for him instantly cooled. Upon further investigation, I found several two-shot photos with his mistress saved in his image folder. Some were quite risque. Having pieced everything together, I showed these photos to Eric and revealed everything. Mr. Weiss, it seems my husband is having an affair. This was saved on his computer and the dates are weekdays. Then you mean to tell me that his frequent absences from the company saying he was accompanying his wife to the hospital were all lies? Yes, they're lies. He's probably meeting with his mistress. What? To use his own family for such a thing? Eric was livid, turning red in the face right before my eyes. I unconsciously picked up my smartphone and called my husband. The call rang out, but there was no response. Nonetheless, I did not give up and continued to call him over and over. After about 10 minutes, Kevin finally answered. Perhaps he knew it was me, but he sounded lethargic. I turned on the speakerphone and confronted him in front of Eric. Hey, what are you doing? And where are you right now?
Huh? What do you mean all of a sudden? I told you I was on a company trip.
Don't lie. You're probably with your mistress, aren't you?
What? What are you talking about? There's no way. Stop making baseless accusations. Don't call me for something like this.
Baseless? Or is it that you're just rattled because I found out the truth?
What? Anyway, I have to go. Mr. Weiss called me.
Eric called him? There's no way that's true. After all, Eric is right in front of me. I said in a cold voice. That's odd. You see, Mr. Weiss is at home with me.
Huh? What are you talking about? There's no way.
As my husband began to protest, Eric himself interjected. There is a way, Kevin.
That voice. Can it be? Really? Mr. Weiss?
Eric cleared his throat. When your wife, Lisa, fell on the street, I happened to be there. I came to visit today, but I had no idea you were lying.
It's not like that. It's a misunderstanding. And why would you know Lisa?
Remember the company barbecue a few years back? Your wife was there, wasn't she? That's why I remembered her face. She has a wonderful smile, very memorable. So when you said such a wonderful wife was ill, I allowed you to take time off to accompany her to the hospital. But you...
It's not like that, Mr. Weiss. There's a reason.
My husband desperately tried to mend the situation, but that wasn't going to work anymore. Eric thundered at him over the phone. Listen well, you're fired. Don't ever set foot in my company again.
No, wait. Please. Mr. Weiss, please. Lisa, you beg him too. If I get fired, you're going to have trouble making ends meet.
Rather than apologizing, he was threatening our livelihood. That's when I completely lost any remaining affection for him. Memories of past hardships flashed through my mind. As if chewing on the emotional scars he inflicted, I told him, Enough already. Why can't you apologize even now? After all, it's your fault for lying and having an affair in the first place. Why should I have to apologize for that? Don't be ridiculous.
What's going on, Lisa? Calm down.
Because of trash like you, I've suffered immensely. But it ends today. I'm leaving you. Don't you dare appear in front of me again. I hope you and your mistress sink as low as you possibly can. I held back a ragged breath and unilaterally hung up the phone. My husband immediately tried to call back, but I set my phone to reject his calls. I quickly packed my bags and returned to my parents' house in my hometown. To my surprise, Eric, Kevin's boss, was the one who helped my move. Eventually, my husband returned to our empty house. Once he realized what had happened, he went to my parents' house, but my furious father forcefully made him sign the divorce papers. My husband knelt and begged in front of me and my parents, but as he was leaving, my mother tossed a good amount of salt in his path. I hired a lawyer and demanded compensation from Kevin and his mistress for the emotional distress they had caused. On top of that, he was also facing a lawsuit for misusing company funds on his dates with his mistress. Apparently, his mistress promptly dumped him when he could no longer provide her with money. Having lost his job and been abandoned by his mistress, Kevin had hit rock bottom. Even his own family and relatives turned their backs on him. Now he spends his days working odd jobs while looking for a new job. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying a laid-back life, continuing my remote work at my parents' home. I still occasionally exchange letters with Eric, who even invited me for a meal recently. Now he's like a father figure to me. After all, I was able to leave Kevin thanks to Eric. I can't express enough gratitude towards Eric, who rescued me, and my parents, who warmly accepted me. I'm committed to gradually giving back to Eric, staking my life on it.
Made money off your clothes? Complain when you can make $4K a month. As a stay-at-home mom, I've been putting up with my husband and mother-in-law's atrocious attitude for too long. But this? No way I could let this slide. Fine, let's revisit this in a month. Fuming, I stormed out of my in-laws' home. Then I made a phone call to a special number. A month later, just remembering the look on my husband's face makes me burst into laughter. My name is Emma. I'm a freelance fashion designer. I used to work for a corporate design firm, but I've gone solo. The fashion industry is fiercely competitive, and freelancing has been tougher than I thought. With more freedom comes a higher chance of failing, and I often get yelled at for not meeting clients' expectations. Still, I loved my job, and that made it all worthwhile. My stubborn nature probably played a role in my success. I took setbacks in stride and fully devoted myself to my work. I still remember that time vividly. I studied hard, got my color coordinator license, and brushed up my social media skills. I wanted to cry at times, and I did. But I persevered. Still, with the support of people who encouraged me, I desperately worked hard. I kept pushing myself, pushing and pushing. As a result, now I can earn a decent income from this profession. I was enjoying life as a fashion designer, but recently something started to bother me, and that was, don't you think it's about time to settle down with someone nice? Absolutely. I've always been a career-first person. Before I knew it, I was already in my early 30s. Work was so fulfilling that I barely noticed time passing. But yes, life's milestones were approaching. Marriage isn't a big deal. I used to laugh it off like that at first, but as I watched my friends, one by one, tie the knot, that's how I ended up marrying Noah, a guy I met at work. Noah is in the apparel business, a go-getter, and a real stand-up guy. It's probably thanks to his personality that things went smoothly all the way to the altar. So, Noah, about future work plans.
Don't worry. You can take the lead on home stuff.
So we decided I'd step back from my designer career for a bit. It's the division of labor thing, you know? That's why I've been really going all in on being a homemaker. As for going back to design work, I was thinking of picking it back up once things settled down a bit at home. Anyway, that was the new chapter in my life. I was living each day filled with dreams and hopes. Then, one day, Noah's dad passed away. His father had been battling cancer for a while, so it was just a matter of time. Still, his mom, Olivia, is really struggling with the loss of her long-term partner.
Mom's really taking it hard.
If she collapsed from the grief, it would be unbearable. So we decided to temporarily move into my in-laws' home. Luckily, their home is spacious, with a separate guest house. We would live there and take care of Olivia, who was in the main house.
Mom, if you need anything, don't hesitate to call on us.
Olivia, lunch is ready. So I took on the chores in the main house too, and kept Olivia company. Our dedication seemed to be helping. She was getting better day by day. I thought she'll be okay on her own soon. I was relieved and thinking of resuming my design work. But then, Emma, have you finished cleaning the main house yet? My mother-in-law just never seemed to pick up her share of the housework. Instead, she'd dump it all on me and go about her lazy days. And oh, she never missed a chance to complain. The food is bland. You don't do laundry properly. She'd nag over and over. At first, I reluctantly went along with her. But this felt like servitude, and I couldn't stand it any longer. I have my own work to do. I explained to her that I was busy with my design work, and asked her to handle the house chores for the main house. But then, "You're busy. All you're doing is sitting in your room drawing." She wouldn't hear of it. To her, my work on the computer or social media seemed like playtime. I tried to explain further, but "Don't think you can fool me with those big words. My, aren't you cunning?" She dismissed me with a wave of her hand. If I pushed any harder, she'd just shout, calling me a domineering wife. So there was nothing I could do but back off. Now what should I do? I talked to my husband about his mom, but he didn't seem to take it seriously. It seems he's also having a hard time at work. He sighs all the time, whether we're eating or bathing. Of course, as his wife, I tried to offer a listening ear. Sometimes venting can be a relief. However, Noah didn't open up to me about the details.
"Don't worry. I'll figure out the work situation on my end."
Certainly it must be a matter of pride for Noah. I was left to manage the difficult life with my mother-in-law without any help from my husband. Then one day, Noah comes home with a particularly dark expression. Turns out he'd made a big mistake at work and lost an opportunity for a promotion. Mistakes happen at work. Don't beat yourself up over it. I thought I was giving him a normal pep talk, but it backfired with Noah, who has quite the ego.
"What would a homemaker like you know?"
My husband said, clearly irritated. Then my mother-in-law jumped on the bandwagon, blaming me as well. "Don't you think Noah's failure is because you're not supportive enough at home?" At their remarks, I'm momentarily stunned. No, this is definitely strange. Stunned by their accusations, I naturally fought back. But my words fell on deaf ears. It was decided then and there, I was the bad guy. From that day on, I was treated noticeably colder by both my husband and mother-in-law. "Emma, can you hurry up with dinner? Emma, you were supposed to take care of the garden, remember? Emma, go buy some flowers for the living room." My mother-in-law became even more demanding, bossing me around. No matter how flawlessly I took care of the household chores, she'd always find something to complain about. "Emma, you're sloppy with the cutting and the seasoning. It's too strong. Emma, I don't like how the garden looks. Redo it, please. Emma, these are lilies. I wanted gerberas." At this point, all I could do was sigh. I just wish someone would acknowledge my hard work. I tried talking to Noah again, but all he did was defend his mother.
"She's old, and she's relying on you. Besides, you have plenty of time, don't you? You're not working after all."
Noah still seemed resentful. I knew he had a big ego, but I didn't expect him to be this petty. And so, drained and weary, I soldiered on alone in my in-laws' home. Then one day something happened that I simply couldn't tolerate any longer. That day I had to go into town for some errands. After wrapping things up, I returned home. But the moment I opened my closet, I was shocked. What? Where are my clothes? Yes, almost all my clothes were missing. I rushed to the main house to confront my mother-in-law, who was leisurely sipping her coffee. "Oh, I sold your clothes." My mother-in-law casually admitted her deed. She said she sold them to a resale shop to help with the family finances. I was furious, more than furious. Those weren't just fashionable clothes. They were designs I had worked hard on, bringing them to life through my labor. Some were even from the early days of my career. Seriously, who sells someone else's stuff without asking? I couldn't believe it. I let loose on her with all my feelings. But who needs fancy clothes when they're unemployed? There was zero remorse from her. And my husband, who had come running after hearing the commotion, was no help either.
"If you have complaints, try earning $4,000 a month."
With that, Noah and my mother-in-law both mocked me. I responded, trying my best to stay calm. "Fine, check back in a month." Both were stunned by my unexpected answer. Ignoring them, I got ready and left my in-laws' house. I plan to live in a hotel for a while. The room is small, but it feels much more spacious than my in-laws' home. This must be what freedom feels like. I lay on the bed and casually checked my phone. several calls and messages from my husband and mother-in-law. Of course, I ignored all of them. Ugh, what a day. I tossed my phone on the bed with an exasperated look, but after a few seconds, I had second thoughts and picked it back up. I dialed a number. A month had passed since then. Right now, there's a big fashion show happening at the city's event hall. It's a collaborative effort between renowned fashion designers and popular models, and not just open to the public. Various industry insiders are also in attendance. I'm participating as a fledgling designer myself.
Emma, long time no see.
Emma, thank you for your help the other time.
Emma, you look well. That's great to hear.
Since many people from this field are gathered, I see a lot of familiar faces. I make my rounds and engage in lively conversation with people I've worked with before. Aiden, long time no see. Amelia, I should be thanking you for your help last time. Lucas, you're looking well too. Is Sophia in elementary school now? What a pleasant time this is. There was no shortage of interesting topics, including recent trends and industry developments. But then, someone rudely pats my shoulder.
Ah, you're here too.
I turn around and see my husband.
So, have you come to your senses yet? You're stubborn, you know. At least respond. How about admitting defeat and coming home?
Noah hasn't changed. Those were his words to his wife he hasn't seen in a month. I was so dumbfounded, I couldn't even find the words. I was brushing Noah off when a man rushes over to us.
Do you two know each other? Director Henry.
Director Henry is one of the higher-ups at the apparel company where Noah works.
Yes, she's actually, embarrassingly enough, my wife. She's so uppity. Even though she's unemployed, it's really becoming a problem.
With those words, Noah snickers. At that moment, Henry turns red and shoots Noah a glare.
Emma, I apologize for my employee's inexcusable behavior.
Henry, it's all right. Noah is watching our exchange, mouth agape. The truth is, Henry and I are acquainted. I had collaborated with my husband's company during my freelancing days, and Henry was the one managing the project. And now my husband is about to learn another shocking fact from Director Henry.
Emma is a renowned fashion designer. Don't you even know that about your own wife?
What? Noah looks at me with astonishment. Yes, I used to be a well-known designer in the industry, not to brag, but I was pretty popular on social media before I got married. Back then, I was pulling in tens of thousands of dollars a month, including ad revenue from social media. I kept that a secret from Noah. There never seemed to be a good time to tell him, and I didn't want to be valued just for my financial worth, so he probably thought I was just a mediocre independent designer. Sure enough, Noah starts to make a scene after learning about my background.
I didn't know this about you.
Well, I never told you. I had recently resumed my design activities, thanks in part to our recent argument. I contributed several designs to this event. I had been approached for collaboration before. The day my clothes were thrown away, I was meeting Matthew, my former boss, during my corporate design days. Apparently, one of their designers had fallen ill. That's when Matthew urgently asked me to take over as the lead designer for the fashion show. I had been hesitant since I had paused my design career. There was also the matter of issues at my in-laws' home. But then, the big moment came. I called Matthew from the hotel to say I was on board and ready to go.
You, being just a homemaker and unemployed.
I could hear Noah's pride crumbling. I retorted with as much sarcasm as I could muster. So, we're good at $40,000 a month, right? Soon after, I divorced Noah.
Emma, I messed up. Let's try again.
You're the worst kind of woman for leaving your husband. Heartless, cowardly. Noah pleaded while my mother-in-law cursed me out. I dismissed them both. Come talk to me when you're making $40,000 a month. Since then, I haven't seen Noah and his clan. From what I hear, Noah got demoted to a smaller department. He must have irked the higher-ups in the company. According to Mr. Jones, even previous work mistakes were due to conflicts with colleagues. Judging as lacking any remorse, he's been completely written off. They're still living in that house, as they seem far from happy. I passed by their home once. It had a defeated aura. Well, they had it coming. As for me, I was recently in the spotlight again at a fashion show. My career as a designer is thriving. And life is busy but fun. By the way, things are going well between me and my former boss, Matthew. Matthew is a great guy who massively supported me when I struck out on my own. I trust him as a partner. I should have honed not just my design sense, but also my man-picking skills. I chuckled at the thought as I focused on my work.
I'm leaving the cafe to Sally. Better her than you. Tony, the husband, says this with absolute confidence. Sally, the daughter-in-law he's talking about, nods with joy. Who does he think he is? He knows nothing about this business. Tony seems delighted, almost as if he's the one running the show. Maybe because he's been playing the role of the cafe owner. I was foolish to have trusted Tony like this. I've got to cut the dead weight. My name is Lucy, a homemaker in my 60s. I live with Tony, and we have a son named John, who married Sally a few years ago. They live close by. John and Sally are important to me, but there's something else that means even more to me. Our family cafe. We've inherited this business through generations, since the town was scarcely populated. We're the current owners of the cafe. The coffee we've been brewing for generations is loved by the locals. Some even ask me to teach them how to make it. Each time they ask, I feel thrilled, and it's almost a pity I can't share the secret. Running this cafe is like a sanctuary for my soul. It's comforting to be surrounded by just the right amount of customers, cook their orders, and serve them. This time is priceless, to say the least. But Tony and I have divergent feelings about the cafe. Tony does handle the administrative side of the cafe, but hardly ever shows up at the place. Why do I have to be at the cafe? Isn't that your job? He would say, essentially neglecting his duties. He's not the Tony I married. Back then, he was all in, saying, let's both work hard on running the cafe. I remember feeling so supported, but after a few months of marriage, Tony lost all interest in the cafe. He never showed up there and seemed to only care about the money it made. How much did we make this month? Can't be much coming from that old shop, huh? It was hard not to be angry when Tony laughed like that. But if I spoke up, I was sure we'd end up fighting, so I stayed silent. Tony was overly concerned about the cafe's earnings, and when he learned how much we made, he tried to pocket it all for himself. The earnings from the cafe are for future expenses, so keep your hands off. Even if I told Tony that, he'd say, it's my shop, so I can take the money if I want to. Stop worrying about small stuff. And he'd take all the profits when I wasn't looking. Tony knew where I kept my banking card. Even if I hid it, he'd find it quickly and take whatever money I had. Thanks to this, I had no extra money left. Tony used all the cafe's profits as his play money and lived lavishly. We'll run this business together as husband and wife, he had said, but those words quickly turned into lies. It was unbearably painful. Please, I want us to manage our finances properly, I pleaded with Tony, but he never listened. Who do you think you are, getting all uppity? He'd scoff. My opinion was never heard, and I was forced to endure. Why, despite all my efforts, was I not rewarded? Why was I only met with suffering? No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't find the answer. The only reason I hadn't given in to despair was because of the cafe. Going to the cafe and working helped me forget all my troubles. If I looked down, customers would notice right away and say, is something wrong? Want to talk about it? Though it was a relationship between the shop owner and customer, those words felt incredibly warm, and it was all I could do to hold back tears. I was resolved to protect this shop at all costs. I'll do whatever I can for this cafe. I swore this from the bottom of my heart, and that vow remains unchanged. To me, this cafe is the most important thing, and my only solace. Yet, relentlessly, the hardships kept coming. There was one more issue I had with Tony. It was how he treated Sally, my daughter-in-law. Sally, do you have enough money? We have some to spare, so don't hesitate to ask. Thank you, Tony. We're good. John is doing his best. Every month, our son and his wife come to visit us at home. John says it's because he worries about us being alone. From the moment John introduced us, Tony took a liking to Sally. He asked about more than just her career, her favorite type of person, hobbies, and how she likes to spend her holidays. I'm so happy someone as wonderful as Sally is marrying John. I hope we can be close too. Tony was clearly smitten. The way he spoke gave it away. John noticed this and never intentionally let Sally get too close to Tony. Originally, the monthly visits were supposed to be just John. However, Sally insisted. Tony and his family are important to me too, so I want to be involved. As expected, now that Sally came along every month, Tony was overjoyed. Sally, is there anything you want? Our wedding anniversary is coming up, isn't it? Sally, do you have any free days this month? I found a great place, and I'd like to take you there. If someone as beautiful as Sally ran a cafe, customers would be thrilled. The way Tony pressed on made it impossible for Sally to feel comfortable. Really? That's so kind of you. Tony, you're such a nice guy. Sally wasn't helping. She could have simply said no, but instead led Tony on. Once Sally responded positively, Tony didn't hold back. He piled on the transparent compliments and escalated his approach to her. Both John and I felt uncomfortable with Tony's behavior. Above all, John was having a hard time. The woman he chose was getting too close to his father. To give John a breather, we'd sometimes go to a cafe and work together, ignoring Tony's actions. But Tony would nullify all our efforts with his actions. That day was also one when our son and his wife would visit. But Tony's demeanor was a bit different today. He frequently looked over at me, a serious expression on his face. Just a moment, I need to talk to everyone here, Tony announced. His voice was so somber that we all sat down to listen. I can't take it anymore. Tony began speaking as soon as he opened his mouth. What can't you take? John asked, and Tony let it all out. Lucy's attitude is unbearable. She acts as if she owns the cafe, not letting me manage the profits. Even though I'm the one who owns the cafe, she looks at me as if I'm useless. It hurts me every time I see that. If Lucy doesn't change, I can't go on like this. I was shocked by Tony's words. Why did I have to hear something like that? Wasn't it Tony who walked out on the cafe we decided to run together? I held back my urge to confront him, seeing he still had more to say. Then Tony dropped a bombshell. I'm giving my cafe to Sally. She's a better choice than you anyway. I blurted out, what? Why would he make a decision about our joint cafe all on his own? Shouldn't he be consulting me first? Meanwhile, Sally, who had been named as the new owner, looked thrilled. I'm honored to take on this role from Tony. Please, come by sometime, she said cheerfully. Observing her composure, I got the full picture. This had been her agenda all along. To steal my precious cafe. That was her goal. Why hadn't I seen this coming sooner? If I had, maybe I could have taken steps to prevent this whole debacle. I was so shocked by their words, I found myself speechless. Why was I being pushed into such a tight corner? What had I done to deserve this? My heart was filled with a strong desire for revenge. I must make them regret this, I thought. And I didn't waste time. As I tried to speak up, saying, well, about that, Tony gave me a look as if to say, got a problem? Unfazed, I presented the facts. The legal owner of the cafe is me. My grandfather started it. How exactly were you planning on handing it over? You have no legal ties to the cafe. At my words, Sally exclaimed, what? Just as I'd suspected, she had been kept in the dark. Tony had no right to decide anything about the cafe, because I was the one who had been running it. Of course, transferring the shop to someone else is impossible without my consent. For Tony to even suggest giving it to Sally, he must be operating under some serious misconceptions. You did say we were co-managing the shop, didn't you? Doesn't that make me part owner too? I did say that, and I even tried to transfer the title to you. But when I suggested doing the paperwork, you didn't want to, remember? That's on you. When we first got married, I had intended to give Tony ownership of the shop, but the one who refused was unmistakably Tony. Seeing Tony go pale as if he'd forgotten all that, I can't help but chuckle at him. When was the last time I saw Tony this deflated? But Sally stood up as if to defend Tony. Lucy, that's too harsh. Poor Tony. Saying that, Sally stepped in front of Tony as if shielding him. Watching her, Tony said, Sally, in a voice that sounded relieved. Tony was thinking of me when he did this, so please stop blaming him. Sally defends Tony with all her might. John looks at her as if he's dumbfounded. Are we done here? I ask, and John nods. Taking that as a cue, I retrieved an envelope from the bedroom. What's that? Sally and Tony look at me suspiciously, wondering what's inside. This contains evidence that backs up your relationship. Saying that, I spread the contents all over the table. Several photographs spill out. All feature Sally and Tony, clearly indicating their intimate relationship. You two were more than just in-laws. You had a romantic relationship, didn't you? As I say that, showing the photos, Sally glares at me, her face filled with rage. How can you be so cruel? Do you enjoy hurting people? Sally vehemently accuses me, and Tony joins in. What are you saying Sally and I did? We were just good friends. What's wrong with that? Looking at the two protest so vehemently, both John and I let out a big sigh. I started suspecting Sally and Tony's relationship 2 months ago. When I consulted John about the uncomfortably close relationship between the two, he suggested, why not hire a private investigator? So I tapped into my network of friends and hired an investigator to track their activities. It appeared that 2 months was plenty of time to gather substantial evidence. They weren't very discreet. The days he said he was away on solo trips, he was actually on romantic getaways. The money taken from the cafe was being used to buy her gifts. I deeply regretted not starting the investigation sooner. I first showed the findings to John. Upon seeing them, John became furious, and his feelings for Sally cooled. We agreed to keep these findings a secret for now, until a moment so definitive came that divorce felt absolutely necessary. Well, that moment had arrived. Sally, my feelings for you have waned. Let's get a divorce. John relayed this to Sally. Her face, once filled with anger, immediately turned pale. No way. This is a joke, right? Divorce? Over just this? Cheating is a blatant betrayal. I can't continue this marriage. With those sharp words from John, Sally crumbled weakly onto the floor. Tony, watching all this, wore a worried expression. Sally, it's okay. I'm here for you, even if John has abandoned you. Tony desperately tried to console a devastated Sally. Ignoring Tony, Sally's face continued to pale. But the revenge wasn't over. I had no intention of letting them support each other. Just so you know, we're getting a divorce too. Upon hearing this, Tony blurted out, What? And stared at me. Tony actually depended on me. He couldn't afford to get divorced. He had already quit his job and was living on a pension. Had he saved money while he was working, things would have been different. But spendthrift Tony had no financial cushion. The only reason he'd been getting by was because of the cafe's earnings. Contrary to what he said about it being an old cafe, it's actually one of the most popular spots in town now, bringing in good money. If we divorce, he would lose that income. In short, Tony's life would plunge further into hardship. Please, don't divorce me. I won't be able to cope. You planned on supporting Sally, right? I can't keep up with a Tony who cheats. My patience isn't endless. I had no obligation to show mercy to Tony, who was getting increasingly desperate. For years, Tony had continually betrayed me. I owed him no favors. That day, I was finally able to let go of the heavy burden named Tony. Though he resisted a lot, the divorce went through. At the same time, my son and his wife were also able to finalize their divorce. Both John and I sued Tony and Sally for alimony, and rightfully so. They'd been cheating. However, both of them resisted paying, claiming they couldn't afford the alimony. Well, that resistance turned out to be futile. Apparently, Tony now lives alone in an old apartment, abandoned by Sally. Sally is young. She probably planned to leverage her beauty and move on. But John wouldn't allow that. As soon as he contacted her parents, they took her back. She's now working her tail off to repay her parents, who covered the alimony. As for Tony, he didn't have the means to pay and ended up in debt. On my end, the reduction in stress significantly elevated my focus on running my cafe. With my newfound financial stability, I renovated the cafe and the atmosphere got rave reviews from customers. Sometimes John comes by and helps out with the business. Despite everything that's happened, John has always stood by me. I want to live the rest of my life with such a kind person as John. One day, I got the news that my stepmother, who raised me, had passed away. I can't focus on work right now. I'll go to the funeral and say my proper goodbyes. Just when I was thinking that, my husband spoke up. Are you really going to fly out for a funeral? I won't allow such wasteful spending. He flat out refuses to let me attend my stepmother's funeral. Even worse, he ignores my desperate pleas and denies the importance of my stepmother's life. I won't back down. No matter what anyone says, I'm going to see my stepmother. My name is Emily. I'm 28 years old. I married Liam 2 years ago and work full-time at a certain company. We met at a mixer and we both were the same age. I was single at the time, so I started dating him casually. Turns out that was the right move. We have a relationship that feels more like friendship, and it's been incredibly easygoing. Shortly after we got married, Liam was transferred for work, and I decided to follow him. I put in a transfer request at my job, moving to the office nearest to Liam's new location. I had never left my hometown before, so this was a first for me. Leaving home was a bit sad, but the excitement of married life outweighed that. 2 years have passed, and I've completely acclimated to this new place. Life is good, for the most part. Then, on another day, I was taking my lunch break at work when my dad called. The message was clear. My mother had passed away. Not my biological mother, but the woman who raised me. My real mother is alive and well, living without any health issues. The news of the death came from someone commonly referred to as my stepmom. She's not blood related and lives just a few minutes away from my family home. I've always called her Olivia. My parents run their own business, and after having me, they apparently didn't have the time to raise a child. So they entrusted me to Olivia, who was an old friend of my dad's and got along well with both my parents. After some discussions, it was decided that I would stay with Olivia until I was old enough to be home alone. Every day when I got home from school, Olivia would greet me with a smile. "Emily, welcome home. Did you have fun at school today?" "I did! But the homework today looks really hard. Can you help me, Olivia?" "Of course, but first let's have a snack." "A snack? Yay!" "Today we've got your favorite, chocolate chip cookies." "Really? I'm so happy. I love you, Olivia." Olivia always put me first. She scolded me when I misbehaved and praised me when I did well. I think we had a relationship as if we were true family. To me, Olivia was as important as my real parents. During the time until I could stay home alone, I spent more time at Olivia's house than my own. Meals and showers were mostly taken at her house. Since I've always been a good eater, the food expenses were no joke. So my parents decided to give Olivia a fixed amount of money each month. At first, she apparently refused to accept any money. "I'm doing this because I want to. I'm happy just being with Emily." That's what she said and stuck with that stance. However, my parents insisted, saying it wasn't right not to give her anything. After multiple refusals, she eventually reluctantly accepted the money. But my stepmother, as far as I knew, never touched that money. When I got married, she gifted me a pearl necklace. It was clearly high quality, and when I looked up the store, I realized it wasn't something she could easily afford on her own. She must have saved the money my parents had been sending all along. She used it to buy me that necklace as a wedding gift. After getting married and moving away, I couldn't see her as often, but I always made sure to visit when I was back home. My stepmother, who thought of me until the end. Now I heard that she's gone. Losing her isn't something I can easily accept. She was a parent to me, after all. Olivia, why so suddenly? I knew she was sick, but I never thought she'd go this quickly. She probably didn't want to worry me, and never showed how much she was struggling. The news was so abrupt that my mind couldn't keep up. I got the call from my dad on Saturday. The funeral would be on Monday. I immediately called my boss and explained the situation. Luckily, it wasn't a busy time at work, so my leave got approved easily. That night, I decided to tell my husband about it after he got back from his holiday shift. Liam, my dad called today. Olivia has passed away. Olivia? Who's that? What do you mean, who's that? She basically raised me. You met her when we visited my family home, remember? Oh, did I? I don't really remember. Ugh. Hey, that's the situation. The funeral is on Monday, so I'm going. But then my husband said something unthinkable. No way! She's not even your mom, right? What? I absolutely won't allow you to go to the funeral. With a dismissive comment, my husband starts fiddling with his phone. I'm stunned for a moment, but quickly snap back to reality, confronting him. Wait a minute, why? What's wrong with going to the funeral? Come on, how many times do I have to say it? She's not your mom, is she? What are you talking about? She's been like a mother to me. She's looked after me for years in place of my own parents. When I was younger, I spent more time with Olivia than I did with them. I plead desperately, but his face clearly shows he's not convinced. He lets out a sigh and bluntly tells me, Look, your parents paid her to take care of you, right? That just makes it a business. She was basically your babysitter. What a way to put it. The money was for my living expenses, nothing more. Sure. You can think that way if you want. She took care of you because she got paid. End of story. I can't believe you. How can you say that? Is it so wrong to want to properly say goodbye to someone who has been so kind to me? I never said that. All I'm saying is that there's no need to spend time and money on a stranger's funeral. What? Why do you get to decide that? It's my time and my money, so it has nothing to do with you. His callous remarks fuel a boiling rage within me. I bite my lower lip, struggling to keep my shouting in check. But it seems he's still not satisfied with my reaction. He smirks condescendingly and coldly states, You know, deep down, don't you? She only looked after you for the money. That's not true. Don't speak ill of Olivia. You're really stubborn. Just make sure you don't go to that funeral. If you do, you won't be forgiven. Olivia looking after me just for the money? That's absolutely impossible. She has always been so kind, and she continued to be good to me even after I grew up. Ultimately, we didn't speak the rest of the day and retreated to separate rooms. The next day, I decided to try talking to my husband again. His face looked stern, maybe still carrying the weight of last night's argument. Despite the tension, I gathered my courage and spoke up. Hey Liam, about yesterday. He let out an exasperated sigh and clearly showed his annoyance. Ugh, seriously? You're still not giving this up? I told you I'm not okay with you going to the funeral, didn't I? But why not? Olivia means a lot to me. So, you're going to hop on a plane just to attend a stranger's funeral? Between the travel expenses and the gifts, what are you trying to accomplish with all this unnecessary spending? How is it unnecessary? It's all needed, and I'm the one paying for it. I'll attend the funeral on Monday and be back by Tuesday. I stood my ground, but his reaction didn't change. In fact, he seemed more agitated by my response. Can you just stop? Our money is our money. I'm working overtime and even on weekends, and you're reducing our savings with your frivolous endeavors. Frivolous endeavors? Are you serious? She's already passed, hasn't she? Just move on. You're not going to see her again. At the sight of my husband's dismissive smile, I reached my breaking point. I glared at him and stated firmly in a low voice, "I'm going to Olivia's funeral, Liam, whether you like it or not." Didn't you hear what I just said? It's a waste of money. That's not the point. At my raised voice, my husband's shoulders flinched. Hey, what's with the yelling all of a sudden? It's because you keep saying terrible things. Would you not go to your own parents' funeral? So you're saying Olivia isn't your real mom, huh? Olivia is my mom, okay? She's just like a mom to me. You have no clue how much time I've spent with her, so stop making assumptions. Fine, whatever. Do what you want. After packing a few days' worth of clothes into a bag, my husband stormed out of the house. Meanwhile, I started packing for my trip home. Simple, subdued dresses for the funeral filled my suitcase. It was tough to leave without my husband's understanding, but now's not the time for that. I headed to the funeral without waiting for him to return. I caught a flight Sunday night to attend the Monday funeral. I was supposed to come back on Tuesday, but the urge to sort things out with my husband made me return Monday night. I couldn't forgive what Liam had said. Even though we're married, I don't want this tension between us to last forever. I quickly headed back home. Maybe, just maybe, he's already returned. It was late, so I opened the door quietly. Then, unfamiliar red pumps caught my eye in the entrance. I heard unfamiliar laughter from a young woman coming from the living room. I carefully took off my shoes and tiptoed down the hall. Peering through the glass door, I saw my half-dressed husband with an unknown woman. What the... Liam, what are you doing? I was so taken aback I couldn't think straight, but I knew the situation was not normal. While standing there shocked, I heard their conversation. Hey, Liam, are you sure it's okay to bring me to your house? Won't your wife find out? It's fine. She's at some old lady's funeral right now. And you always said you wanted to come over, right? Yeah, but what if we get caught? I can't afford to pay alimony if it comes to a divorce. You're with me almost every day. Don't you have financial issues? Well, yeah, I've been splurging on you. So if it comes to alimony in a divorce, it's gonna be bad. Jeez, you're such a bad guy, Liam. You lie to your wife about working late, don't you? When I spent the day with you, I told her I had to work on my day off. She's clueless, so she never realizes. Wow, Liam, you really are a bad guy. The room filled with the loud laughter of two people. What on earth is going on? He lectured me about how it's a waste of money to fly to a funeral, and yet here he is, lavishing gifts on his mistress? Unforgivable. To think that this was the guy who insulted Olivia. Just minutes ago, I had been contemplating reconciling with my husband, but now, all warmth for him had turned ice cold, leaving only disgust. They're getting all lovey-dovey, completely unaware of my presence. I swiftly activated the video recording on my phone, capturing the evidence clearly. Just to be safe, I sent the video to my parents as well, securing irrefutable evidence. Now I was ready. With adrenaline pumping, I flung the door open and stood assertively in front of the cuddling couple. Hey, what's going on here? Emily, why are you here? Weren't you coming back tomorrow? I looked down at my flustered, stammering husband and calmly stated, I came back earlier than planned. I wanted to have a serious talk with you, Liam, but it seems there's no need for that now. No, you're getting it wrong. She's just a colleague from work. I'm her mentor. Oh, really? So mentors bring their half-dressed protégés home now? Oh, well, that is... Go on, say something. My husband was at a loss for words, and his mistress was visibly trembling, turning pale. What happened to their earlier bravado? Seeing my pathetic husband, everything started to seem ridiculous. Oh, was this the man I once loved? Is this the person I married and desperately tried to get to understand me? Before me, the man I once loved was pathetically fumbling for excuses for his affair, telling lies so transparent even a child could see through them. I took a deep breath and made myself clear. Enough is enough. How much more do you need to disappoint me before you're satisfied? You have the nerve to waste money on your affair, yet complain about my spending on commuting? What about you? You're the one wasting money. Calm down, Emily. I get it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Forgive you? You've got to be kidding. You mock me, and then when it's convenient, you say you're sorry? Life doesn't work like that. You and your mistress can go to hell. Now get out, both of you. I threw my husband and his half-naked mistress out of the house and locked the door. I also tossed their belongings and clothes off the balcony. For a while, they continued to shout in front of the house. When a neighbor came out to check, they found a half-dressed man and woman. Eventually, the police were called, and they ended up giving statements at the station. The news broke at work, resulting in his mistress losing her part-time job, and my husband being demoted to a less responsible department. He managed to keep his job, but has been calling in sick frequently, unable to bear the cold stares from coworkers. As for me, I packed my bags and went back to my parents' house immediately. A few days later, I consulted a lawyer for divorce mediation and spousal support. He's still resisting the divorce, but it's only a matter of time with all the evidence I have. Since coming back home, I've started working at the local branch I was at before. And with my stepmother's grave nearby, I'll be visiting more often. Olivia, I'll come see you often from now on. I said that as I stood in front of her resting place, hands pressed together in prayer.
My girlfriend's pregnant, so I want a divorce. We had been married for 3 years, and we finally bought our dream home. Just when we thought we'd start building a happy life together in our new house, this happened. While I was excited about our new home, I couldn't believe my husband was cheating on me behind my back. I won't let him live happily ever after with his affair partner. I'll get my revenge, no matter what it takes. My name is Sophia, and I'm 28 years old. I've been married to Brian for 3 years. From the start, both of our dreams was to buy our own home. We both worked hard, saved up, and even cleared the mortgage application. Finally, we bought our long-awaited new home. The house feels a bit too big for just the two of us, but we decided to buy it now to prepare for the future. On moving day, after we'd finished bringing in all our belongings, Brian turned to me and said, "Whoa, we really pulled it off, didn't we, Sophia?" "Yeah, we did. We've been through a lot, but it feels like our dream has finally come true." "There were times when I felt like giving up, but it was our love that kept us going." Oh my gosh, stop it, I'm blushing. Even after 3 years of marriage, Brian and I could still share jokes like this. Being with him was genuinely joyful and comforting. A month after the move, lately Brian had been working late quite often. Is work keeping him busy? It became a daily routine to check in with Brian before he left for work in the morning. "Brian, are you coming home late again today?" "Yeah, probably have to work overtime." "I see. You've been busy lately. Are you okay?" "Well, it's work. Can't help it. I'll eat dinner before I come home, so don't worry about me." "Alright, just don't push yourself too hard, okay?" Even though Brian was coming home late, my days were filled with juggling work and household chores. Life was hectic, but I had a cozy home and a fulfilling job. I thought I was leading a somewhat satisfying life. Yes, that was until something happened. About 6 months after moving into the new house, I decided to bring up a topic with Brian. "Hey Brian, don't you think it's about time we consider having a child?" "Well, what? A child?" "Yeah, we've been married for quite a while now, and we've even bought a house. What do you think?" Let me think. After a brief pause, Brian gave me a rather vague response. "Well, having a child is a blessing, you know. Do we really need to set a timeline?" "That's true, but I'm almost 30, you know." "Having a kid at 30 isn't uncommon these days. Let's just leave it to timing." "Okay, got it. I remember how much you used to say, 'I want kids soon,' right after we got married. Now he seems less enthusiastic about it." Although Brian's reaction made me uneasy, I tried not to think too much about it. Then, 1 week later, I came home from work to find Brian, who's usually home after me, already there. Surprised but happy, I rushed over to Brian. "Brian, you're home early today. Let's have a quiet dinner together. I'll start cooking now, so just hang tight for a bit.
Before that, can we talk?
What's up?
Can you sit over here?
Sensing a different atmosphere than usual, I sat down as instructed, but Brian seemed hesitant to speak. Growing impatient, I slowly urged Brian. Hey, what's going on? Is something wrong?
I want a divorce.
What? What did you just say?
I'm sorry, Sophia. I know it's selfish, but I just can't go on anymore.
What are you saying? Divorce? This is a joke, right? We even bought a house, and we were just talking about having kids. I felt my head go blank with the sudden news. Come on, Brian, you're joking, right? Divorce isn't something to joke about.
I'm not joking, I'm serious.
Why? Why would you suddenly say you want a divorce?
Well,
what came out of Brian's mouth was unbelievable.
Chloe, the woman I've been seeing, is pregnant, so I want a divorce.
Chloe? What are you talking about?
I can't abandon Chloe. I'll take responsibility and marry her.
I don't understand. Are you serious?
Why would I joke about something like this? Just, please, let's end this.
I can't believe this. I never thought my husband would cheat on me, especially when we've been so close. My hopes were shattered in an instant. Since when? How long have you been seeing her?
About 6 months. No, maybe a year ago.
A whole year? So you've been involved with her even before we moved into this house? Tears started to fall as I struggled to accept this harsh reality. Was it some sort of nightmare? Seeing me like this, Brian awkwardly broke the silence.
I'm really sorry. It's not your fault. It's all on me. Please don't cry.
What are you talking about? How can you expect me not to cry when you drop something like this on me?
You're right.
I thought we would be happy together. I thought this home would get livelier when we have kids in the future, and now this. Each time I spoke, the tears would not stop flowing. Brian, trying to convince me, started talking in platitudes.
I still love you, Sophia, but I have to take responsibility for the child too. I thought you would understand.
Hold on, wait, do you still have feelings for me?
Of course. The only person I love is you. That hasn't changed. But we don't have kids. Shouldn't we prioritize Chloe's child in this case?
What was he talking about? If he loved me, he wouldn't have cheated in the first place, right? How can he claim to love me and still cheat, even getting the other woman pregnant? There was no way I could forgive such a convenient excuse. At that moment, a surge of anger, unlike anything I'd ever felt before, welled up inside me. Staying late at work, going in on days off. He was meeting Chloe during those times, wasn't he? Thinking back, there were signs of cheating from the beginning. I just assumed he was busy with work. I wanted to slap the me who was praising him back then. But for now, I couldn't afford to get emotional. Doing my best to calm my racing heart, I told Brian. This is all happening so fast, I can't really wrap my head around it. I need some time.
Oh yeah, it makes sense.
He nodded, visibly relieved. For now, let me go back to my parents' house. I'll contact you once I've sorted out my feelings.
Yeah, sure, got it.
Bye then. I left the house without looking back. I could have really gone straight to my parents' house, but I didn't want to worry them. With no other option, I checked into a hotel. Since I had the time, I decided to do some research on divorce. Then I came across something astonishing. The guilty party can't request a divorce? This is it. This is the way to go. My spirits lifted as if the cloud of despair never existed. At the same time, a strategy came to mind. For the next few days, I stayed at the hotel and crafted my plan while searching for a reliable lawyer. During that period, I received daily texts from Brian.
I really don't want to leave you either, but it's for the child. Please forgive my selfishness. You're my only love, Sophia. I need a decision soon. I can't keep Chloe waiting, especially for the sake of the child.
Making the child his priority, he was reluctantly divorcing his beloved wife. I looked at his text with cold detachment. He was portraying himself as some tragic hero, and I simply replied, I need time to think. After a week, I returned home. Brian ran up to greet me, shouting, and assuming I had decided on the divorce, he took the liberty to proceed with the conversation.
I was worried because you didn't come back for so long, but I knew you would understand.
Sorry for the delay. I've finally sorted out my feelings.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. So let's get to the divorce paperwork right away.
I'm not getting a divorce.
What?
Brian's hand, holding the divorce papers, froze in midair.
Ah, what are you talking about, Sophia? That's a funny joke.
A joke? There's no way. I will not divorce. Not ever.
Well, why? Didn't you sort out your feelings?
I did. I took a full week to think and decided not to divorce.
What the? You can't just do that.
He started to panic, probably assuming divorce would be straightforward. He must have already talked to Chloe about remarrying, as he quickly pressed me for a response.
Please, Sophia, just divorce me right away. Look, I even got the divorce papers.
Thanks for the effort, but I have no intention of divorcing.
Don't say that. Please, I'm begging you.
Looking down at Brian, who kept apologizing profusely, I finally spoke. You know, you were the one who cheated, right, Brian?
Huh?
Right? You'll admit that, won't you? You do realize who's at fault here, don't you?
Oh, yeah, that was me.
Then that makes things simple. The guilty party can't request a divorce, you know.
What?
It's true. The guilty party can't initiate a divorce. It seemed he was unaware of that fact. Suddenly hit with unexpected information, he was at a loss for words. Sensing things had taken a terrible turn, he shifted to a more aggressive stance.
Wait a minute, I didn't know that.
Well, now you do, so we're done talking.
But this is a problem. I already plan to remarry with Chloe.
Give it up. I'm not getting a divorce.
What?
He continued to rant, but I ignored everything Brian had to say. Finally, teary-eyed, he pleaded.
Please.
To that, I opened my mouth as if I'd been waiting for this moment. Fine. If you're going to go that far, I'll divorce you.
Really? Are you serious?
I cautioned Brian, who looked at me with eyes shining in anticipation. But there's a catch.
I'll listen to whatever you say.
Here are my terms. I explained each point as if drilling it into him. Firstly, all the savings we've accumulated since we got married, plus the savings from your bachelor days, and then the money we get from selling this house. All of that will be given to me as compensation and property distribution in the divorce. Those are my terms.
What? Are you kidding me? That's impossible.
Brian's face turned beet red as he rejected the conditions. Of course he did. If Brian were to agree to these terms, he'd find himself not just broke, but shouldering a 30-year mortgage on a brand new house all by himself. I resisted the urge to smirk and said to Brian calmly, If you can't accept my terms, then no divorce.
What? Are you kidding me? No one would agree to this madness.
If it's not doable, it's fine. We just won't divorce. After that, Chloe gave Brian a real earful. He was frantically running around to law offices trying to divorce me before his child was born, but apparently he was turned down by every firm, being told, divorce initiated by the guilty party is not possible. Ultimately, Brian had no choice but to accept my terms. Worn down to the bone, Brian finally spoke to me.
I can't take it anymore. I'll agree to all the conditions. Just give me a divorce.
Well, of course, if you keep your promises, I have no problem with divorcing.
Thank you, and as you said, I'll pay everything. Please don't claim alimony from Chloe in the divorce court.
I see. I'll think about it. With that, Brian and I were officially divorced. Right after the divorce was finalized, I went ahead and claimed alimony from Chloe in the divorce court. Upon finding out, Brian called me, furious.
Hey, Sophia, what the heck is this? This isn't what we agreed on.
What do you mean, not what we agreed on? What are you talking about?
Don't play dumb. We had an agreement that you wouldn't claim alimony from Chloe, right?
What are you talking about? I said I'd think about it, but I never said I wouldn't claim alimony.
What the hell does that mean?
Apparently, the two of them were planning to get by on Chloe's savings for the time being. But when I claimed alimony, even those savings were completely depleted.
That's low. Don't you have any compassion?
Compassion? That's funny. To Brian's mistaken words, I responded clearly. The one who's low here is me? Let's not forget how we got here in the first place. You freaking cheated.
Even so, did you have to go this far? I've already paid you enough money.
So what? You think I should be grateful because you settled this with money? If I wanted to, I could ruin you socially. But I decided it's a waste of energy to do anything more for a lowlife like you. Get it? Never involve yourself with me again. With that, I hung up the phone and blocked all communications from Brian. Finally, I had taken my revenge on the cheater. As for that new home we bought, it seems we could only get back about 60% of the initial price. All the loan payments now fell on Brian, and he had no money to pay them off. He's borrowing from relatives left and right and still taking loans from financial institutions. In the end, it looks like he'll end up paying far more than the original mortgage. Despite having a child and increasing expenses, it seems that Brian and Chloe are fighting daily over money.
Weren't you not going to claim alimony from me in the divorce? What's going on? I told you she tricked me.
You're the one who got fooled. How useless can you be? We're going to have more expenses now with this baby. What are you going to do?
Don't blame me for this. It's not like I had a choice. This is all because you kept nagging me to get a divorce.
What? Are you saying this is my fault? You should have just pulled off a smooth divorce without getting caught.
Like that was possible. Be realistic. You're just too incompetent. Man, I should have never gotten a divorce in the first place.
I'm the one that should be saying that. I shouldn't have had a child with a man like you. At this point, there's no denying that they brought this upon themselves. The newborn is innocent, but for those two who committed the terrible act of cheating, it's an appropriate outcome. As for me, I've rented an apartment near my workplace and am now thoroughly enjoying my life as a single woman. I've been recognized for my accomplishments at work, and I got a raise. Though I had to give up my dream home and now have a divorce history, my life is far from over. From here on out, I want to forget all about my past married life and live a fulfilling life.
Scams targeting the elderly? Huh? That's just awful. I sighed as I watched the morning news before heading to work. What's got you sighing? My mother-in-law Kate handed me a cup of coffee with a smile. Well, it's hard not to sigh when you hear about stuff like this. The TV was covering malicious door-to-door sales and grandparent scams targeting seniors. I've heard rumors that these scams are on the rise around here, so it's hard not to worry. Oh, are you worried about me? I'm only 68, you know, and I'm pretty sharp. It's great that you feel young. But Mom, you're so laid back. It's a bit concerning. Kate let out a reluctant, well, at my husband's joke. Another peaceful day in our home. I took a sip of my coffee with a wry smile. My name is Ellie. I'm 28. I've been married for 3 years. We moved in with my in-laws, Kate included, after my father-in-law passed away 2 years ago. I currently work at a part-time job at a local supermarket. I'm worried about leaving Mom alone in the house. Would you consider moving in with us, please? I was hesitant when my husband first asked me to move in, especially since I didn't know Kate very well at the time. But living with her has been great. She's kind and treats me like her own daughter. Plus, she's been a huge help around the house, which has been a lifesaver. We spend our time after work and on days off cooking together, and I've learned some cleaning tips from her. I've come to really love Kate. One day while working my usual part-time job, I started to feel unwell. I felt sluggish, maybe a bit feverish. My manager noticed and said, Ellie, you look pale. You can leave early today if you need to. Are you okay? I wonder if I caught a cold. Feeling guilty, I decided to take her up on the offer. I pushed my bike along as I headed home. Kate will be surprised to see me home at this hour. If I tell her I left work early because I'm not feeling well, she'll worry. I can easily imagine Kate fussing over me. She's a really kind person. A bit naive and overly trusting, but that's what makes her endearing. Huh? Do we have a guest? I tilted my head at the unfamiliar car parked in front of our house. If there's a guest, I'll enter quietly. I opened the front door and froze. There was a handsome man in a suit, chatting and laughing with Kate. Spread out in front of them were pamphlets and some mysterious equipment. The news from this morning flashed through my mind. The man stood up and offered me a business card with a bright smile. His name and company were printed on it, but there was no address or phone number. As I examined the card, Kate filled me in. He's apparently a sales rep from a kitchen appliance company, offering free equipment checks in the area. Is this one of those inspection scams? Kate initially told him to leave, but she must have been swayed by his pitch, and that's when I came home. We don't need any services for our kitchen appliances, so please leave, I told the sales rep firmly. For a moment, his eyes narrowed, but then he flashed a bright smile, showing his white teeth.
Ha ha ha! Your granddaughter sure is responsible. You must feel relieved, right?
The salesman smoothly deflected my words and spoke to Kate. She's not my granddaughter. She's my daughter-in-law. Perhaps charmed by the salesman's good looks, Kate's voice seemed brighter than usual.
Ah, my mistake. It's nice to have someone who worries about you. Some salespeople won't leave until you buy something, you know. It's a dangerous world out there, so your concern is valid. Now, let me show you our state-of-the-art equipment for checking your kitchen appliances.
Switching between a deliberately scary tone and a cheerful one, the salesman kept talking non-stop. As he suddenly implied that he wasn't a scammer and tried to transition to the check, I interrupted. We said we don't need a check, right? Kate tried to calm me down. Ellie, I'll make some coffee. Could you bring the pot? It's a free check, so why not? Before I could object, Kate insisted. Please. I made it clear that the salesman should not enter the house. You can do the check at the entrance, right? I'll bring the pot, so please wait here. Feeling uneasy about the ever-smiling salesman, I went to get the pot. I took the opportunity to call my husband, but he didn't answer, probably because he was at work. So I sent him a message. Left work early due to feeling unwell and found a suspicious salesman at the door. He won't leave even though I've asked him to. Simply type and send. I felt relieved when I saw that he had read the message. As I was fiddling with my phone, Kate peeked into the room. I'll help you carry the pot. I instinctively hid my phone behind my back. Kate, let's just ask the salesman to leave. I mustered the courage to speak, but Kate just laughed it off. Feeling frustrated, I carried the pot to the entrance as Kate had asked. The salesman was leisurely sipping the coffee Kate had made.
Let's proceed with the check.
He took out his equipment and began checking the pot. After a moment, he said,
This won't do.
Is our pot really that bad? Kate sounded concerned. The salesman shook his head sadly.
This pot contains harmful substances. You could get sick using it.
That can't be. Before I could finish, the salesman smirked.
Many cheap pots are like this. You might have kids someday. You can't use this kind of pot for your family. It's concerning.
His exaggerated, sad expression and biased words confused Kate. He's using our family's health to manipulate us. I frowned in anger, but he continued.
Don't worry. Our new pots eliminate these concerns. They're made with the latest technology, so you can cook delicious and healthy meals.
He smoothly opened a pamphlet without letting me interrupt. He pointed at a certain product and held it up as if to signal a final blow.
For example, this usually costs $11,000 each. But if you buy two now, it's $7,000 each. What a deal!
What? Kate and I exclaimed in disbelief. $14,000 for 2 pots? This is going south fast. I forcefully interrupted him. Thank you for the explanation, but we won't be buying anything. The check is done, so please leave. For a moment, our eyes met, and a chill ran down my spine. His eyes felt eerily cold, despite his smiling face. I've heard of salespeople becoming aggressive when they can't make a sale. There's still no reply from my husband. I have to find an opening to call the police. Just as I was thinking this, Kate spoke up with a smile. It's a really good product. I'll buy 2. Please come in. Kate, I disagree. And if we spend that much money, my husband will be furious with me. I knew that Kate had a safe in her room with some cash in it. I hoped she would reconsider when I mentioned her son, but she said, You can't put a price on family health. Besides, he approached me with this offer, so it's my decision to make. I was at a loss for words at Kate's seriousness. In that case, I'll have exactly 2 items in my car. I'll go get them. The salesman happily left through the front door. When he returned, he showed us the pots. They looked fancy, but seemed no different from regular pots. Reading my thoughts, the salesman said, It may look like an ordinary pot, but it's made with a special process. It cooks faster and contains no harmful substances. Kate was nodding as she touched the pot. I see. Here's the contract. He handed the contract to Kate, assuming she had already decided to buy. Just sign here. You can read the rest after I leave. He was so casual about the contract after being so enthusiastic about the product. Wait a minute. Reading the contract after you leave is absurd. And is there a cooling off period? The salesman smirked, as if mocking us. Do you really want to hinder a decision made for your family's health? He didn't answer my question. I should have researched the cooling off period more thoroughly. Oh, already. If this is the case, I should have looked into it. It's a system I've heard a lot about, but I realized that it's meaningless if I don't properly understand it. Maybe I should really report this. There's still no word from my husband, and even if Kate gets mad at me, I have no other choice. As I was thinking this, Kate spoke. It's funny. I never said I decided to buy. I said I'd buy it if it's really good. Her usual smile was gone, and she was staring sharply at the salesman. What? The salesman was stunned. Kate, I thought you were all set to buy. Ah! Kate laughed her usual laugh. Then she turned to the salesman. Who do you think I am? My family has run a pawn shop in this town for generations. I worked there for a while, even after I got married. I developed an eye for quality. People around here know I'm a good appraiser, but this pot doesn't even need an appraisal. She pushed the pot towards the salesman. This pot is barely worth $100. I bet everyone who bought this was fooled by your looks and smooth talk. I had heard that Kate's family owned a pawn shop in town, but I couldn't imagine her as an appraiser, given her usual gentle demeanor. I was recalling vague memories. Kate continued. I heard rumors about handsome, unscrupulous salesmen selling pots around here. I thought it might be you. The salesman angrily interrupted. What are you saying? Are you calling me a scammer? He was furious, and I instinctively moved to shield Kate. Just then, the front door opened. I'm home. My husband appeared in the living room. I got off work early today. Is this the kitchenware salesman? I nodded, and the salesman awkwardly handed my husband his business card. Here you go. What's this? Your business card only has the company name and your name. Shouldn't it also have the company's address and contact information? How can we get in touch if there's an issue with the purchase? My husband's question was met with a vague nod from the salesman. His earlier confidence seemed to have vanished. He claims our current pots could be harmful and make us sick. That's why he started pushing these $7,000 pots on Kate. My husband shot the salesman a stern look. The salesman's smile tightened and sweat appeared on his forehead. He dodged the question about a cooling-off period and tried to get us to sign the contract without reading it. It's all very suspicious. This has to be a scam. As I laid out my concerns, the salesman interrupted. Fine. Since you're not buying, I'll take my leave. He stood up, leaving the spread out contract, brochures, and even the pots, and bolted for the door. Wait! I shouted, but my husband reassured me with a smile. What's going on here? We heard the salesman's panicked voice from a distance. As we approached the door, we saw police officers blocking his way. I consulted the police when I left work. They met up with me and came here. I wasn't sure if it was a scam when I got Ellie's message, but if he won't leave when asked, that's a problem, especially with recent scam rumors. I nodded, understanding the situation. I later learned that it's crucial to explicitly ask someone to leave. If they don't, it becomes a criminal offense. I was just offering a free pot check. Then I recommended our product out of goodwill, and nobody told me to leave. The man shouted as he was restrained by the police. Is that your car parked outside? The make and license plate match the information from victims. Let's talk at the station. One of the officers said, and the salesman's shoulders slumped in defeat. I handed over the business card, contract, and pots as evidence, along with the recorded conversation on my phone. Damn, I thought I could easily scam some naive seniors and timid women. The salesman raised his voice as he was pushed into the patrol car. I'm sure I'll stare at the dealer. Don't you have loved ones? They'd be heartbroken. Exploiting people's fears to sell overpriced items is shameful. He clenched his lips and looked down. I'm sure he has someone important to him, but it's his fault. The police took him away. Kate had also heard rumors about scams in the area. When the man claimed to be a salesman, she suspected him. I came home while she was considering contacting the police. And that's how we got here. My husband sighs. Mom could have been in danger, and who knows what could have happened to Ellie. I smiled to comfort the regretful Kate. But we're safe, and that's what matters. I was really worried. I'm sorry for making you worry. Kate apologized. I felt relieved and suddenly sat down exhausted. I had left my part-time job early due to feeling unwell. Supported by my husband, I stood up and we all laughed together. A few weeks later, we learned from the police that the man was indeed the scam artist rumored in the area. He had successfully scammed several households, so he should face appropriate punishment. Also, I found out I was pregnant. The day the unscrupulous dealer came to my house, I felt that my physical condition had changed, which was apparently an early symptom of pregnancy. The family health the scam artist mentioned was indeed important, but exploiting that concern is unforgivable. In a world filled with all sorts of people, we'll teach our unborn child to live strongly without losing oneself.